Alright everyone, welcome to the podcast. In this episode, a bit of a different backdrop. I won't spin the camera around because I don't want to change the angle, but I'm actually in Bangkok. So this is the first international episode of the podcast, which I'm pretty excited about. Not because I have anything in particular to speak about today, although I do have some sense, but first international episode of the podcast, hence why I'm like dressed a little bit more casually than usual. So I imagine in the background of this, I'm going to try edit it out, but there might be some like flora and fauna you can hear going on in the background. Hopefully there's not too much like traffic, but I'm on like the balcony top of the hotel room here. But what I've been, and it's such a beautiful early morning. It's about 20 to 7 at the moment. It's humid, it's delicious, it's fantastic. I'm so excited. But I don't want to give too much of a life update because, you know, who really cares about that? But what question I've been thinking about this morning, and it's because a colleague of mine just resigned, and he resigned not going to a new job. He is just taking it's calling like a life break or something like that, and when I messaged him about it, when it became say public knowledge that he had resigned, he shot me a message after saying that he wanted to like catch up, or that he was going to reach out anyway to get some like life advice or like recommendations from me. And at first I was thinking like, gosh, what the hell am I going to tell this 24-year-old guy who's pretty well put together. He's a fun dude, and he's doing all right, so what the hell am I going to like? And at first I texted him and I said like, yeah, happy to chat, but maybe take anything I say with a grain of salt. Like I've spent the better part of the past decade, I think, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it, being led by hedonistic, debaucherous gravitas, and I don't even know. Just being led not by caution, whatever the opposite of that is. I don't know, just being led by being wild, something like that. Being led by being wild. So, but then it made me think that maybe I am a good person to speak to, because maybe we can learn from my mistakes. Learn from the things I've done, and with this person as well, when I'd actually found out that he had resigned, it wasn't going to be staying with the company, it was in the context of the CEO of the business was in the room, and I jumped in and said something about like, worry about building out your life resume. Don't worry about your career resume. Worry about your life resume, because when you're 6 feet deep and you've got that gravestone just hanging over you, the thing that, or maybe before you get to that point, the thing that you're going to be looking back on or thinking about is your life resume. It's not your career resume. I think it's your life resume. I mean, you can do cool things through your job, for sure. 100%, but and I said this out loud in the sea. I was like, oh well, no, like, my husband, when he got his like professorship at the university, like that was a really big life event. But I'd make a guess, and I don't think it's that wild a guess, that he'd have a lot more nostalgia going through all the things that led him to that point in which he got to that professorship, or all the things he did after that as well. And I know that's sort of still within the career there, but it's not the sign off of I did the professorship. It's the things that led into it, and I think, you know, if you asked a professor what was cooler, was it teaching that same course that you've been teaching for the past 10 years, or was it when you got to do your research in the Galapagos Islands, or like, you know, living in the Tibetan mountains for 6 months as a part of your like thesis study? One of them stands out a little, like even just say then, like it stands out quite easily to me. Is what's the more exciting thing? What's the thing you want to look back on? Bird jumping out at me. So yeah, it made me then reconsider a little bit. Well, have I got something to share? You know, what is the life advice I would give this 24-year-old or my younger 23-year-old self? And I'm only 28 now. And I think for some additional context, this individual, or like this 24-year-old, and this is the experience of every single 24-year-old, at least for those that are from Melbourne. You know, what was 4 years ago? We're in 2025 now. This is the start of COVID. So that means at the age of, 23 or 24 years, he was entering uni at COVID, like peak COVID time. So he maybe had like 1 year in which he wasn't at university during COVID. And so he spent 2 years of this really fundamental part of his life in which he should be, say, going out, socializing, traveling, making mistakes. Wasn't doing that. He was just like at home, studying. That's not how you're supposed to, I think, lead your 20s. And then out of like default, you know, I finished the degree, and I think because, or what I expect, that natural curiosity and desire to explore has been subdued because of being like locked up. That coming out of university, went straight into a graduate program at the job we both work at now, and he's been doing that ever since, working like full time. And this is a very demanding job as well. Most of us work at least 50 hours a week, and I don't think he's done really that much travel in that time as well. From speaking to him just briefly, it's something he wants to do. And I think it's so interesting how this guy has gone straight from like school into uni and then into like this corporate job, and say 24, he's earning like well over 100k, and I'm only sort of catching up to that now at 28. But I feel like I've really like led such an interesting and rich life during my 20s. And if I was to walk out on the road right now and get hit by a car, like I'd have no regrets in terms of how much I've lived. Have I done everything I've wanted to do? Absolutely not. I'm so far away from that. You know, maybe I've got through the first 2 chapters in the memoirs I'm hoping to write one day on my life. But have I taken every opportunity to be able to do as much as I possibly can in my life to this day, in my like 20s, to do exciting and cool things that I can look back on? I'd like to think so, for sure. So in thinking about when I do meet with this guy and have this conversation with him, what am I gonna to share with him? As I said, I am, my knee-jerk reaction at the start was, well, hey, don't listen to me, man. What can I say? Like, I've fucked up. But but maybe what are the things that I did fuck up then? Okay. So as I said, like I don't regret anything. I definitely don't regret anything. The person I am now is a direct consequence of the actions I've taken. And so I don't regret it, but it's, I can definitely say that the thing I'll be saying to my children, or the thing that I would want to say to my younger 20-year-old self, or what I'll be saying to this guy, is that don't get caught up in, or so easily caught off guard by how appetizing short-term gratification and hedonistic pleasures will be. And I think of that in the context of, we'll say, partying, just for a general context, because I did a heap of that from really the age of like 21 till about 24, we'll say. There was probably like 2 big years, but we'll say 3 years. And there was a bit, surrounding like either side of it, but that was really where everything like peaked for me. And what that entailed was, say, a lot of drinking and like hanging out and socializing during the week. And then on the weekends, it meant going clubbing or going to parties. But that's the shallow stuff. Me recommending, hey, like, don't do too much of that. It's not, of any value. But the context I'm thinking of is that I think we should all be traveling as much as we can, exploring the world. I mean, that's the thing that gets me going. I love that. But in what way are you doing it? I spent those first 1 to 3 years from when I was 20, 21, 22, even 23, like a little bit, where when I was traveling, a lot of it had to do with like partying. So going to music festivals, going like clubbing, just being pretty like wild. And that was the intention of the traveling as well. And I think when you're in that mindset of that's the intention, that's the value I'm going for, that's the purpose of why I'm visiting these locations, I think you come at it with the same aggression that you come at, say, the other things that you go at in your life, especially if you're a conscientious individual and you go into work with a lot of grit and you put a lot of effort into it. I think you do the same thing with like the partying, because you're not working when you're traveling, likely. And I think quite quickly you start to go down this path of where it becomes, or how I like to frame, or have spoken about it before, is for those in Melbourne, you understand this, but I think you can swap out a couple of the references I'm making here for where you live yourself, where you grew up. Is that when you first start, say, partying or clubbing, and maybe you're 16 years old, 18 years old, whatever it is, it doesn't matter how lame or cool or crap the place is, it's so exciting. You're excited because it's now you've broken through this next part in your life cycle. You're now like an adult. You're around alcohol. You're around other adults, and people are dressing differently, they're acting differently, and so it's really exciting. And it doesn't matter how shit the place is. It doesn't matter how cool the music is. And I think you end up starting out with something that's a little bit more like softcore. It's the G-rated thing. The music's more chill, but I think quite quickly you realize how uncool that place is after you go to it a couple of times, and then you want to go to the next place, which is a little bit more intense. The music gets a little bit more intense. The way people are dressing are a little bit more intense as well. People are like doing drugs now around you, and it's really how loud that moped probably is. I'm getting really nervous that the sound on this is going to be shocking. I really hope I just haven't trashed an entire podcast. But so you then are stepping through this path of things getting more intense, and eventually to be able to get that same like pleasure and that high out of the going out and the party and the club, you've got to take yourself to like a Revolver. Even if you aren't from Melbourne, there's a good chance you might have like heard of Revolver. It's a really famous nightclub in Melbourne, known for having very intense music. Everyone on there is on drugs. It's a intense scene. One of the heaviest like smokers you've ever been in, and that's what you need to sort of get that same like pleasure out of it. And I think the same thing happens then when you're traveling, and so you're needing to go to like more intense places. Then you need more alcohol, you need more drugs to be able to get that spark of that energy back into that enjoyment out of like what you're doing. And then it seems as though at the end of the line you're ending up in Berlin, and that's when you're like dressed in all black, you're going to the Berghain or Kit Kat or Sisyphus or whichever like one it is, and you're just around these people who they particularly the ones, not all ones from Berlin, but the other people, the other internationals that have gone to these places, that they're just these shells of humans. It's like as if they've dug out inside of them, like it's like they've peeled out, like they're just the avocado skin left. They've taken the seed out, they've taken all like the flesh out, and all they are is this like empty shell, this husk of a human, because they've just rinsed their soul. They've rinsed their soul, they've washed out their mind, they've zapped all of their emotion left, and they need to go to these really extreme places to feel anything. And I was going down that path for sure. I've been to all those places I've mentioned, and done some pretty like wild and curious things, but I don't look back on that too fondly. As I said, I don't regret it. I'm glad I can share these stories. I'm glad I can be humble enough to laugh about it, even though I feel quite disgusted or even shameful of these things as well. And I see how just uninteresting they kind of are. And so I think that's that's like the first thing I'd love to tell my younger self, that's not actually what will be valuable to you. That's not what you'll be proud of speaking about or really sharing with others when you get a little bit older. And I think it's just not that interesting. A lot of other people do it. There's not too much of a story that comes with it. And I mean, then on top of that, I mean, we're just talking about things being like cool or fun, building out a life resume, and I don't want it to go down like a somber note, but I've had friends OD, friends that have died, others that have just lost their mind from going down this path. A best friend whose brother has hopped on this train to Berlin and just rinsed himself out. And I think I caught it at a very fine line before I, couldn't come back. But there's so many of my friends who have like gone down this path, and, they're physically all right now, but mentally they're not there anymore. So that's I think the number one thing I'd recommend, like the advice I'd share with myself. And so what other advice would I want to share with myself? What other cool things have I done? Traveling alone is awesome. I highly recommend traveling alone. And if you're a girl, if you're a woman, like you've got to be, I think, a lot more careful than how a man can travel alone. It's just the way the world is. But I still think you can travel alone. You've just got to be intelligent about it. But it can be so interesting, the pressure it puts you under traveling on your own to go out in the world, explore, meet, and chat to people and hear their stories. And you're going to have some people that are just very uninteresting you meet, some people that are just assholes, and whatever individuals, and you're going to think, man, I kind of wasted my time doing that. But you also go back and I think, okay, no, I probably didn't waste my time like that. Even though I didn't enjoy that experience, it was interesting enough. I don't know why it's jumping out at me, but I ended up on this island in Thailand a couple of years back, and there was like Koh Lan or something like that. And I was sitting on the beach, and I just started chatting to this Russian couple next to me, and they were quite a bit older. I mean, at the time, I think I was like 23, and they would have been in their 40s, I think. And I was just chatting with them, and then I invited to like share dinner with them later. And I remember this guy, like his job was like the manufacturing and like the sales of the buckling or the coupling system in between train carriages. There might have been some other stuff, but I just remember that distinctly with like his job, whether he owned the company, whatever it was. That was his job, and it was just an interesting thing. I'd never sat down and had dinner with some Russians before, and it was a really just cool, interesting experience, hearing their perspective. I remember pressing a little bit in terms of why does, say, Russia have this thing going on with Ukraine, and this is well before this current war was going on. You know, what is going on there, and I remember him saying to me, like, that's not for you to worry about, like that's our concern. That's for us to talk about. And I thought, oh, it's kind of interesting. Like that just that little blockage of not being willing to speak about that unwillingness. And I thought it was also interesting that the person I was with as well, my girlfriend at the time, she was Dutch, and this is just when the Dutch commercial airline had just been like shot down by the Russian artillery, anti-aircraft artillery. And I thought, well, maybe we are kind of in the position to be asking about this. There's a Dutch national here, the countrymen have just been killed, and you know, you're here saying, no, it's not for you to talk about, it's just for us. And it was an interesting interaction, and it was interesting understanding like why they enjoyed this island in Thailand. And he was super keen to like drink as well. He was so keen to just do shots of Johnny Walker Red, so keen. At the time, I just like had my appendix taken out like a week before I think I'd got to Thailand, and I think it even might have been less. I think it might have been like just a couple of days before I'd got to Thailand and up on this island. So I was advised not to be drinking, but that was just like a really interesting experience. And now I'm trying to remind myself what was this second point I was making about traveling alone. Yeah, and that wasn't even a story about traveling alone. Great. Now I got to bring it back to so traveling like forces you. Okay, it still relates to it because it forces you to cultivate this willingness to speak and just engage with other people around you. And I think I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't already done so many years of traveling on my own prior. But one of the richest things that came to me from traveling alone was that when I had done like a large Europe trip when I was, I think, 20 at the time, or like 21, something like that. 20 actually, yeah. 20, gosh, that's real. This is going to make this story really crazy, because I think it might have been 20 or 21. No, I was 21. It was 21, even still. 21, I was even traveling around Europe, had got to Prague, and at this point in my trip, I'd been traveling for a bit of time. I'd already done a bit of traveling before this, and I had started to shift my perspective on how I was presenting myself to others, particularly when I was traveling, where rather than, say, slowly unravel who I am to people, to present myself little bit by little, like sort of warm up to people as I normally might do in my day-to-day life back in Melbourne, I would be super intense right off the bat. This is who I am. And the reactions I would get from it was either, fuck off, I'm not into you at all, goodbye, don't want to be your friends, or I fucking love you, let's go, let's hang out, let's go to the next country together. And why I did this, or why I ended up even doing this, is what I found was that, say I was in a place for a week or just like 4 days or whatever it was, if I like was slowly unraveling like who I was, just being sort of soft, like teasing out, this kind of thing, it could be that after a week, then I'm realizing, actually, you know what, I'm not into this person at all. And now I've just wasted a whole week trying to like become friends with someone I just don't connect with. Whereas if I came off super intense off the bat with, and not in a disingenuous, dishonest way, like who I am, but like very honestly, like this is who I am, this is what I value, this is what I'm about, this is what I'm excited to do, then I could skip that whole week thing and then just become really good mates with someone quite quickly. And I found this most successful when I was in Prague. I was traveling there on my own, and I met these American guys there, Braxton, Phil, and Keith. And off the bat, very intense. And I think it helped that these dudes were pretty wild guys as well. They were a bit older, couple of years older, and they were going for it on this night. They just come off like a hot weekend in Budapest, but that coming off super intense, we just instantly connected. Particularly me and my friend Keith, who's still my friend to this day. We just connected so well, and we ended up just having the best week together, Keith, Braxton, Phil, and I. And at the end of this week, I was saying to Keith, like, in 6 months' time, I'm rocking up at your doorstep in San Francisco to hang out. And 6 months' time, I rocked up at his door, and we then ended up having this incredible week together of just exploring, or like me exploring San Francisco, hanging out and like partying and going to these music shows. And it was just the most incredible, like, holy shit, like this was such an amazing life resume, chapter to look back on. And this all sparked from traveling alone, putting myself in a situation where I had to like interact, chat to other people. And especially when you're like backpacking, so many people are in this same position as well. But it was so awesome that I'd made these like amazing friends. And as I said, like, I'm 28 now, I was 21 at the time, and I still talk to Keith to this day. And you know, it's been 5-6 years now, 6 years since I saw him in San Francisco. Yeah, we still connect and like, you know, keep each other updated with our lives, which is fucking awesome. It's so cool. It's so cool. And so I think that's one thing that's come out of like just going on my own, and I think the benefit that provides is, what other life advice would I want to share with my younger self? The university questions really, I think I've come to my answer of like whether someone should go to university or not. And I was stupid enough to do 2 degrees, a Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Arts. And I want to give the pros and cons of this, but I think ultimately my feeling is that it's not necessary, and it's also not that valuable to go to university. And I hate that I'm saying that, because I love education. I'm constantly self-learning. I loved the education experience as well, more so for my second degree. The first one was a fucking joke. But the second degree I absolutely loved. And maybe I'll start up with the positive here. So my second degree was a Bachelor of Arts, and I majored in anthropology and philosophy. Being that degree, I also did like quite a bit of history and writing, creative writing. But I adored this degree. I absolutely adored it. Every part of it. I loved being at university. I loved being in tutorials. I loved engaging with other students and professors on these intellectual ideas. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the readings every week. I loved the books. I loved the library, and just being able to just dedicate myself to expanding my wisdom. It was awesome. I absolutely loved it, and I think it gave me so much as well. I think it taught me more about marketing and business than my commerce degree did across the 3 years. It was ridiculous how useless that degree was. But ultimately, it taught me the most uncanny ability to communicate. Not just being extroverted and being able to speak, but being able to communicate in the sense that I was able to now research and cultivate my own ideas that I genuinely knew to be true, or at least grounded in enough evidence that I could then go out in the world with these ideas, with these sense of this value, or these philosophies, these perceptions of how I could then look at the world, or these perspectives that I could then overlay onto the world to then make sense of it, and then be able to articulate that both in a verbal and written form. And I think it makes you first a really interesting person. It also then makes you a really powerful individual as well, because it doesn't matter what field you're in, whether you're a plumber, an electrician, a consultant, a doctor. If you're the best communicator, you win. Hands down, you win. You win all situations. Communication is so important, and not like just the straight business communication soft skill you see on LinkedIn, but that ability to understand the things you're reading, the things you're learning about the world, to then incorporate those ideas into your own psyche, and then to articulate that back in your own original thinking. That is such a powerful thing. It makes you such an interesting person, and that builds your life resume out. Truly believe that. Yeah, and it just made me think of something else I'd love to tell my younger self, or to this guy, is like, read more. Read as much as you can, and do it out in public, do it at libraries, do it at cafes, do it anywhere, but read more. And I say this coming from someone who's always been an avid reader. I try to read one book every 1 to 2 weeks, and the benefit you get from that is you're reading the life works, or the lives of these really amazing people, and you're able to then almost incorporate that into your life resume. Like, reading is such a superpower. It makes you such an interesting person when you're well read. Cannot recommend that enough. And maybe I'll speak a little bit more about that in a sec, but just back to like the university thing. So those are the awesome parts about university. The socialization parts, I think, is pretty fucking trash, to be honest. You know, I did my second degree in COVID, the second one outside of COVID. The one in COVID sucked. Firstly, because it was all online. So my perception is that a lot of people just go online anyway. But even in my comm degree, which was outside of COVID, most people were so disengaged. They hardly even came into uni anyway. So the social part of uni, at least in Australia, I think sucks. Most people are just uninterested to be there. And if you're not pretty left-wing, I mean, most universities are going to be left-wing leaning. Then you end up at a university like University of Melbourne, which is like very left-leaning. Then you find a point in time, which is, 2025 or between 2020 and 2025, in which even before that, there's so much left-wing shit going on, and it's just getting indoctrinated into the people in the class. And so if you don't fit into that, everyone hates you in the classroom. And so that was really the theme of like my second degree, being more right-wing and more interested in classical liberal views that I really struggled to make friends in my second degree, because it didn't fit with everyone else's left-wing agenda. So just keep that in mind as well. But yeah, outside of that, the type of like partying stuff you do there, I think if that's like the first time you're doing it, then you grew up probably a little bit too late. Most of the stuff that you end up doing in university, you already did when you were like 18 in high school anyway. So I don't think there's as much to offer there in terms of the socialization part of it, to be honest. You're doing all of the real socializing outside of it anyway. But then the bad part about going to university, God, I'm just realizing how big this conversation is going to end up. And I don't want this to be a huge podcast, but we'll say the bad parts of university. Yeah, as I said, that first degree I did was so useless. It was so useless. And I'm going to look for the silver lining in it. But it was this commerce degree, and you could get away with being so disengaged with the material, ridiculously disengaged. And you just learn whatever you needed to before this exam, and you do well, and you'd forget about it in 2 weeks. It was so useless. And the people, particularly in this commerce degree, they didn't want to be there either. And I just remember like there was no practical education. I didn't even know what LinkedIn was until after I'd finished my commerce degree, which is ridiculous. Or like, I think even what like an ABN was, a business number. And maybe that was because I was too fixated on all of the partying and like whatnot, but I didn't think it was terribly unique, my perspective. I mean, it seemed like a lot of other people had that attitude as well. And that degree didn't really lead me to any jobs as well, because I didn't come out of it with any skills. That arts degree, I came out with some very, very tangible skills that I was then able to articulate to potential employers as well. And you're doing this all at an extremely expensive cost. Like, I can't believe how useless that first degree was. Particularly when it comes to business, you don't learn business in a degree. You learn business by reading books and then actually working in business or starting your own business. So if there was something I'd recommend to an aspiring business person in the corporate world, oh my God, don't do a comm degree. It's so useless. Do an arts degree, seriously. The capacity at which you'll be able to communicate will be uncanny to any of those commerce degree individuals. And in that meantime, do a couple of electives or whatever, or educate yourself outside of university on marketing and key skills. Like, that is going to get you in the door way faster than a degree. Like, I imagine if you were to spend 1 year dedicating yourself to learning social media marketing, digital marketing, or copywriting, that is going to get you a job so much faster than if you were to do a 3-year commerce degree. You're not going to have anywhere near the bill at the end of it. And then by the time you've got that job, in that 2 years, you're going to be learning about other parts of business, other parts about like corporate business marketing, that you're going to be almost 5 years ahead of 6 years ahead of that person who did the commerce degree. I always worked crazy amounts while I studied. And the silver lining from that commerce degree is I did a minor in wine studies, and that enabled me to have a career in wine for what's close to a decade, and a really successful one, and a really gratifying one as well. But that was such a small part of that degree, and I didn't necessarily need to do it through that degree. I could have educated myself in wine outside of that as well, but the lesson I came at, I was so disenfranchised with the education system. And then as I came out of my second one and was looking to do PhD, and getting told that I wouldn't be let in because I wasn't willing to incorporate radically left-wing ideologies within my thesis. University, I think, at the moment is a joke. I think there's some great opportunities coming forward with online universities, with, let's say, like Jordan Peterson is doing, but at an overall, like the cost-benefit analysis of uni, I think, sucks at the moment. It absolutely sucks, and it pains me to say that because I love education, but that'd be the other thing I'd recommend, or at least I'd wish I knew that before I got so committed to going to university and that pressure that I was under. The other thing I did find out, thankfully, at the right age, at about 24, but again, if I was a bit younger actually, 23. If I'd known this a bit earlier and also didn't have the false sort of gods of partying, instead had God actually as my God. The thing I wish I'd learned a little bit earlier, but I did get at the right time, was how valuable getting as fit as you possibly can is to your life. And I was 23-ish when I started on this path at 24, when I wanted to see how fit I could possibly get. And that started just with running. And then I had trouble with one of my knees, and so I had to stop running. Then I started going to the gym, and then I started swimming a heap. And then that mixture of like the swimming and the gym, and then I ended up going down the Ironman triathlon path, and I really spent a solid 3 years of just dedicating my life, or the spare time out of work and studying, to being as fit as I possibly could. And it was one of the best things I ever did. I feel the sense of like health I got, the sense of like, pride's not the right word, but just satisfaction in myself, I can't think of a better word, but like the pride I had in myself for the things that I could achieve was so incredible. It was so incredible. So having that goal of just becoming as fit as I can possibly be, and what I noticed is that's not a goal that ever leaves. I'm constantly trying to look for that, but the dividends it pays are remarkable. The confidence it gives you, the love you have for yourself, then the love you have for your own body, like your mind, what it does for your mind as well is just remarkable. The resilience you build, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. I don't think people they don't know, they don't realize how awesome it can be just being so fit. The sense of security and respect you have for yourself as well, the confidence I have, like the sense of peace I have knowing that then I can protect someone else as well. I love it. I absolutely love it. But yeah, that self-love you get, I think, because it is this strange act of service you give to yourself by going out and doing something that's not necessarily enjoyable in the moment, but the benefit it then rewards you with. So that I can't underline enough as being so critical, as becoming as fit as you possibly can it's amazing. Like the dividends it continues to pay is just remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So I can't recommend that enough. So what else? Like I know I've kind of like jumped over like traveling a little bit, but what does that mean exactly as well? Like do like weird and peculiar things. And I was about to say like go to galleries. That's not a weird or peculiar thing, but don't do the typical thing that a 20-year-old like might do. But going to like galleries, seeing really beautiful art. Go to like an opera on your own. I remember going in Prague. I went to an opera on my own. I was sitting in this weird booth right up front, and it was so strange. But you know what? It was such an interesting experience. Go to like yoga in India. Go to yoga at some cult in Dalesford, like I did. Go do some like weird and unique things that'll add to your life resume. The other thing is work hard. Work as hard as you possibly can. Bear as much responsibility as you possibly can on yourself. Because I see a lot of people having these really poor life resumes because they spend so much of their time just sleeping, sitting on their phone at home, watching TV, just going to the footy on the weekend. It's so uninteresting. That wasted time, that kind of just like messing around. Like you should have just such a tenacity for your life to do as much as you possibly can and to do as much meaningful and exciting stuff as you possibly can. And I think why I've had success in my 20s is because I've never had like a TV around in the house. I've never been one to just like religious. I don't watch the news. I'm not religiously watching TV shows. And you know, I every now and then like I do binge where I spend maybe like a day or 2 days like just watching like a TV show that I've got like addicted to, but then I won't do it again for like months and months on end. I think it's just that when whatever you're consistently doing is what your life ends up being. And so if you're consistently just like doing this mondial stuff, that's what your life ends up being. But the amount of time people spend on their phones, it's just ridiculous. And that's how you end up having such a boring life. And so if there's a way that you can remove screens and tech from your life as much as possible, the dividends on that are incredible. Because the day-to-day interactions you have are so much more interesting. You know, not being on your phone when you're on public transport, and then the things you see or the people you end up chatting to or running into, just saying hi to people on the street. The interactions you can have are just they're so cool. They're so exciting. And that makes you an interesting person. Just like getting out there in the world and doing stuff. So I think I'm knocking on around 45 minutes here. Is there other advice I'd give to my 25-year-old? So I mean, in relation to that work, like, yeah, work hard on educating yourself, work hard on building skills, because I think by the time you get to then my age at like 28, you're going then into your 30s with a level of confidence that then you can actually raise a family, that you can be a good husband, you can be a good wife, that you can actually like provide for one another, you can provide for a family. Like you don't want to get to 30 just feeling like a big child. That would be such a daunting experience. So work hard, but also do some exciting things. Well, both of these can be done at the same time. You can max both of these things out. But yeah, work hard at cultivating the absolute best version of yourself. Like that's where your 20s should be. Your 20s should be making mistakes, exploring, and just trying to cultivate the best version of yourself. And when I mean cultivate the best version of yourself, not becoming a master in something, because it's not the idea. I think it's that you're just exploring and you're doing so much and you're putting in so much effort that just by coincidence, the thing that comes out of the other side is remarkable. And, you know, how shallow your foresight is when you're so young, when you're 20 years old, to think how impactful some of these decisions that you make will be. I think inaction's going to be the ultimate killer. But yeah, thinking, okay, I didn't get into this degree I wanted to, that you are the master of your own future. You are the master of the skills you get, the education you get, the places you explore, the opportunities. You are the absolute master of this. Idleness is the thing that fucks you up, or just playing into a victim mentality and accepting that the way you are is because of every other reason that's going on except your own fault. Oh my God, just taking absolute responsibility for yourself. That is like another thing I would have loved to have told my younger self. And I think so many young people just need to be told that you are 100% responsible for everything in your life. Even if it's not, just having that attitude, I think just turns you into such a powerful person. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there, just shy of an hour. We get some breakfast, sun's coming up. What a phenomenal morning. What an incredible morning in Bangkok. Worked for a couple hours, podcast, and it's not even 8 a.m. yet. Epic, absolutely epic. Thank you so much for joining this episode. If you made it through, I love you. To my few and loyal subscribers and followers, thank you so much. I thoroughly appreciate it. Give it a like, give it a comment, feel free to share it. That's epic. So thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.